I've got the Galasport Manic paddles here. These are some of the coolest paddles I've had a shot of in the past couple of years. They are based on Galasport's slalom paddles. These ones that I've got have a carbon aramid blade and a GRS shaft, which is basically a fiberglass shaft. You can also get other versions. You can get all different kinds of shafts, carbon blades. You can also get a version that the blade is joined to the shaft, which are really nice. The big difference about this paddle is that the blade is placed in front of the shaft. So when you're holding it, your paddle is actually ahead of you for extra reach. I've had the paddle for about just under a year's time now. I'll use it pretty much whenever I'm not in my freestyle kayak. I was a bit concerned when I got the paddle because it does have this massive bend in it, and that might be a bit of a weakness structurally. It also has a foam core inside the blade, so on low Scottish rivers, which are a bit rocky, it might take a bit of a beating. Because I was concerned about the durability, I didn't actually bother going for the full carbon paddle, as nice as it would have been. Okay, what is good about this paddle? It's really nice to use, first of all. I cannot express how much fun it is to use the paddle. Because the blade is in front of the shaft, it means every single stroke you take, you get more power on. It's a really nice feel because there's no flutter in the paddle. It's almost like a caster wheel effect. When I've taken boost strokes, I can really wait till that last second and crank out the power, and it can make your boat fly. Because the paddle is shaped the way it is, it forces you to take more forward strokes than backward strokes, which is really good for your technique, and it has the potential to make you paddle better. What's bad about the paddle? First of all, it's a bit heavier than a normal paddle if you compare it to the Werner Powerhouse or something like that. It is less noticeable if you have the blade vertical and you're using the foam cores of the paddles. They do seem to take a bit of the weight off your hands, but you're never going to have it as light as a Werner Powerhouse or something like that. Another con is that the shaft, the GRS shaft anyway, is not very grippy at all. I thought that was a bit of a letdown, especially when you compare it to Werner and vertical element and things like that. I could not get the same grip on the shaft. It does come with a little indexing, a plastic strip and a bit of heat shrink. If anything, I thought the heat shrink made it slippier. I've ended up going for some insulation tape, and I put a bit of pattern on it just to give me a bit of extra grip on my control hand. On my non-control hand, I still have insulation tape on it just because I really didn't like the GRS shaft at all. If you are someone that's not too confident with their paddling and is putting a lot of backward strokes in, these paddles probably aren't for you, because the way the blades are shaped, to make them so good at forward paddling, you need to make them bad at backward paddling. The paddle seems to have stood up pretty well. There are a few scratches on the blade, as you'd expect. It seems to have stood up well to low paddling days in Scotland, as there often are. Not that I've been doing any 90-foot waterfalls or anything like that, but the shaft has held up pretty nicely. I don't feel like I've been close to breaking these yet, no concerns about that. The thing that is maybe my favourite thing about this paddle, and probably deserves a review in itself, is the Galasport USA connector. They come with other manufacturers under slightly different names, but it's all basically the same thing. It is like similar to a seat clamp on a bike, where you've just got this lever and then you can separate both sides of the shaft. This little tool is really great. It means you could realistically have one set of paddles which are around 2 meters for doing rivers, and you could have the same set of paddles adjusted to about 190 centimeters, and you could use it for freestyle. If you have someone else in your group who's left-handed, you can change from right to left hands. You can change the angle of the feather. It also means you can travel with them so much easier. When I flew to Nepal in November, everybody else had to have paddle bags or paddles taped to the outside of their boat, or just take an extra bag for their paddles and pay an extra baggage fee. Because I could split them apart, I put both ends of the paddle inside my boat and no one would have known I had a paddle. Someone actually asked me if I had forgotten it. Absolutely love this paddle. I haven't really liked any other brand as much as Werner for a very, very long time. In fact, never. They are my go-to paddle these days because they're so much fun to use. I will always reach for these over my Werners. I'm pretty confident that they'll stand up to a lot of abuse. I would be very, very tempted to buy the full carbon paddles which have the paddle and the shaft joined, because I've had a few shots of them and they are so nice to use. It seems to have all the benefits that this paddle does without having the downfall of having the extra weight, which would be great. I also found that the shaft was a bit grippier as well, so I would need piles of insulation tape. And you can find all the Galasport details on their main website. In the UK, you can buy the Galasport paddles from Cool Blue Canoes, and I would really advise checking these out.